At just 27 years old, NFL superstar Sean Taylor was shot and killed while defending his home from intruders. A father, a legend in the making, and one of the hardest hitters the game had ever seen. Gone in an instant. But here's the haunting part. It didn't have to end that way. Why didn't the NFL step in? And did football system fail him long before that night? Sean Taylor wasn't just good at football, he was electrifying. A safety with the build of a linebacker and the instincts of a quarterback, Taylor was the kind of player who made stadiums hold their breath. His hits were thunderous, his coverage was elite, and his passion unmatched. Drafted 5th overall by Washington in 2004, Taylor was immediately pegged as a generational talent. And in a league full of stars, he was special, on the field and off. But that's the part many people missed. Because early in his career, the media painted Sean Taylor with a different brush. He was labeled as reckless, immature, even dangerous. Why? A few scuffles, a missed meeting, and a refusal to smile for the cameras. But behind that hard shell was a quiet, fiercely loyal young man who loved his daughter, cherished his privacy, and stayed rooted to the people and community he came from. In the NFL, where image matters almost as much as performance, Sean Taylor's authenticity was both his power and his problem. He didn't do the interviews. He didn't play politics. And the league, instead of embracing him, kept its distance. But the numbers didn't lie. By 2007, Taylor was a Pro Bowler. He had cleaned up his image, grown into a leader, and was playing the best football of his life. He had a fiancée, a baby girl, and was building a future off the field. Then came November 26, 2007. That night, Taylor was home in Miami, recovering from a knee injury. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was usually with his team, but fate had different plans. At around 1:45 a.m., intruders broke into his house. Sean Taylor heard the noise. He did what any father, any protector, any warrior would do. He grabbed a machete, the closest thing to a weapon he had, and confronted the danger head-on. That's when they shot him. One bullet severed his femoral artery in front of his girlfriend, while his 18-month-old daughter was asleep down the hall. Sean Taylor died the next day, just 27 years old. And just like that, one of the brightest flames in NFL history was gone. The league responded with tributes, moments of silence, and black armbands. But for those who knew Sean, it wasn't enough. Because behind the tragedy, there were questions. Why wasn't he better protected? Why didn't the NFL step in when they saw his name being dragged through headlines? Why didn't the system support him when he tried to grow? Sean Taylor was trying to leave behind a different life, a life where fame, envy, and past connections could turn deadly. But he couldn't outrun it. And the league just watched. The details of Sean Taylor's murder stunned the sports world. It wasn't a random act. Investigators discovered it was a planned home invasion. The men behind it were young, just teenagers. They thought the house would be empty. They had no idea Taylor was there, recovering from an injury. And here's where the tragedy deepens. Taylor had been targeted before. His home was burglarized just 8 days earlier. That wasn't coincidence. It was a warning. But nothing was done. No league security response, no stepped-up protection, no public warning. This was a player recovering from injury, known to have received threats before, and yet there was no NFL protocol to help him. Let that sink in. Players are the product. Their bodies, their minds, their stories, it's all monetized. But what happens when they're off the field? When they need protection, support, mental health care? Too often, nothing. Sean Taylor's life should have been a success story. He had turned a corner, become a family man, and was doing everything right. But he didn't have the safety net he needed, and the system wasn't built to help him. Even in death, the league's response felt performative. Washington rushed to retire his jersey years later, finally erecting a memorial, only to reveal it was little more than a mannequin in soccer cleats. Fans and family were outraged. How could one of the most iconic players in team history be honored so carelessly? The answer is uncomfortable. Sean Taylor was always too real for the NFL's image machine. He didn't fit their mold. And when it came time to protect him, first from media narratives and later from real-life threats, they failed him. That's what makes this more than a sad story. It's a warning. A league that glorifies toughness, yet doesn't defend its own players when it counts. What does that say? Taylor wasn't just a victim of a home invasion. He was a victim of a system that saw him as a highlight reel, but not as a human. And that's why this story still matters. Because behind every jersey is a person, a son, a father, a life. And sometimes that life ends far too soon. Not because of a tackle, but because the world off the field is just as dangerous. Sean Taylor's story still echoes because it hits every emotional chord. Glory, struggle, redemption, and tragedy. But it also forces us to ask tough questions. What's the value of a player's life? Not on the field, off it. Shouldn't the league that profits from their bodies also protect them once the cameras are off? Taylor had everything going for him. A superstar career, a loving family, and a second chance at life. But all of it was taken in seconds. The NFL praised him after his death. But while he was alive, they let the media shape his image. They let the narrative go unchecked. And when he needed help, real help, they weren't there. Yes, the men responsible for his death were caught. Yes, justice is still slowly working its way through the courts. But justice can't bring back a father, a partner, a teammate. And it can't erase the uncomfortable truth. This didn't need to happen. I want to be clear. I'm not blaming the NFL for the actions of 4 young criminals, but I am questioning a culture that doesn't protect the people who make it profitable. What if Sean Taylor had more support after his first home was burglarized? What if he had access to immediate NFL security or even relocation? What if, instead of being misunderstood and mishandled, Sean had been embraced, mentored, and truly protected? We'll never know. But here's what we do know. Sean Taylor gave everything he had to the game, to his family, to his future. And in his final moments, he died a hero, defending the people he loved. Not because he wanted to be a legend, but because, in the end, he was just being himself, a protector, a fighter, and a man who refused to back down. And that's the Sean Taylor we should remember. Sean Taylor's death wasn't just a loss for football, it was a loss for all of us who believe players are more than entertainers. His story deserves to be told, fully, truthfully, and with heart. If you believe these stories matter, the untold, the unfair, and the unforgettable, then hit that subscribe button.